Hello, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin, and I'm the author of The Empowered Divine Feminine, Becoming an Unstoppable Woman in the 21st Century and Beyond. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do tarot and astrology readings. You can book that at my website, michellefondinauthor.com. Welcome to our series on this book, The Empowered Divine Feminine. And I am focusing the guidance from this book on chapter 6, Becoming Empowered in Romantic Relationships. So if you haven't yet picked up a copy of this book, go ahead and get that on Amazon in any of the formats, and you can follow along with this video series. Today's topic is expectations in early dating and why women get disillusioned with those expectations. This is a continuation on our series on self-love, self-respect, self-worth. On Valentine's Day, I posted a video. Go ahead and check that out. It's the Empowered Divine Feminine vlog number 11 on self-love goals. So this video is very interrelated with that other video to help you understand what self-love has to do with your dating goals, your dating relationships, early dating relationships, and expectations. This is something that I did not realize until really recently, was this notion of expectations in dating. And the reason I didn't notice this was because I am a recovering codependent person. And that is another playlist we're doing here on this channel, is on codependency. I always believed in love and love at first sight and falling in love within the first few dates. I always believed that. I have had all of these very, very idealistic views on love and romance. And when you spend a lot of time on self-work, when you spend a lot of time on your self-love, self-care, and healing, you realize that people that you're dating, people that you're beginning to date, are strangers. They are strangers. Just like you wouldn't encourage your child to immediately go over a new friend's house before you had time to check out the parents and how that child was, for example, you wouldn't necessarily invite a stranger over to your house or into your bedroom because they're a stranger. And I believe, and this is really a recent reflection, you guys, I believe that it is because of the immediacy through social media, the immediacy of connection through texting, where you don't have to be face-to-face with someone, but you can open up to them over a text, email, instant messaging, or even social media in and of itself. When people post very private things about their individual lives on social media, that it creates a bond that is a little bit artificial, meaning you don't really know the person. For all intents and purposes, this person is still a stranger. And those dissolving of boundaries are made worse by movies, romantic comedies, and our notion of what dating must be or should be in the early stages. So we have these rules, whether they are express rules or unwritten rules in dating, and that there's a certain level of progression in the dating. There have been movies made about the joke of waiting 5 dates before engaging in sexual activity with somebody. There have been jokes about perhaps getting lucky on the first date. So there are these notions of a progression in expectations in dating that are not realistic when it comes to the real world. And because we might have a connection with someone, we might have chemistry with someone, we might want to jump their bones in the first date. The problem is that that person is a stranger. You do not know this person and they do not know you. And so there really isn't any time for getting to know this person, for real intimacy to occur. And in fact, it takes a really long time to get to know someone. It takes a really long time to get to know who that person is behind the social mask. Because for reasons that lead to getting the date in the first place and maybe getting to the second date, we all create a social mask. Now, it may be lesser for some, and it might be way more for others, but we put on a polite act or a polite face, or we make sure that we're on our best behavior in those initial first few dates. And the reason is because, that's how you act out in public, right? You don't show the true value of who you are in public. There's an air of caution. You err on the side of caution. It's a social front. It's who you are socially out in the world. And in dating, we tend to do this as well. And if you're seeing someone for the first few times and you're thinking that their social self or their social masked self is who they actually are, there's usually a layer of truth to that, but there are many layers underneath that you haven't yet seen. And so when I really began dating again in the past, I've dated off and on my journey since my last long-term relationship, which my last long-term relationship ended in 2018. I've begun to really ponder this and really dig deep into this concept that the person that is in front of you on a first, second, third, fourth, or even fifth date is still a stranger. You still do not know this person, and they still do not know you. And when you really realize that, when you realize it to the magnitude that I realized it, is that this person in front of you is just someone you don't really know, then that brings more caution, more discernment, more boundaries, and just taking an initial dating relationship very slow, because you don't have these expectations of early dating meeting or exceeding certain goals. And so when we have these expectations of, I have to have the chemistry or falling in love with this person within the first few dates, that's an unrealistic goal for most cases, for most intent and purposes. When you have an unrealistic expectation that after the first date, your date should be calling and texting you every single day, or even after the second date, that they should be calling and texting you every single day, that is an unrealistic dating goal, because this person is a total stranger. You've had one date or maybe two dates with a total stranger. This person as a total stranger does not owe you that kind of attention, and vice versa, right? You do not owe that person that kind of attention after one or two dates, or even three or four or five. When we temper our expectations, we enter into the realm of more self-love. And it's not to be cold, it's not to be extra protective of oneself, but it is to be protective of yourself. Meaning, you wouldn't just let a stranger, well, maybe you would, hopefully you wouldn't, but you wouldn't just let a stranger whom you've been on a few dates with, or maybe even just a stranger you encounter on the street, you wouldn't necessarily let them just move into your house with all of their stuff without necessarily paying rent. Just let them move in, introduce them to your kids, give them the password to your bank account within the first few meetings of this person, right? You wouldn't do that because you have a modicum of self-respect and a little side of caution, healthy dose of caution. In the same way, why might you expect a total stranger to give you, the most precious thing we have is our time, right? Besides our bodies, our physical bodies, right? But we have our time, and we only have a certain amount of time in a day to allocate to many things that pull at us. And then women, especially women, tend to get all bent out of shape when a man that they've gone on a couple dates with isn't paying them full-on attention. And believe me, ladies, I was guilty of this for decades. Guilty as charged. Because I fell into that social construct that if you go on a date with a person 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 times, if you sleep with that person on the first date, second date, third date, then all of a sudden you have these extraordinary expectations of what they must mean to you, of what they must be for you, of what they must do for you. And then we get disappointed and disillusioned when that other person does not meet those expectations and meet those needs, because there's still somebody who is not in our lives. They're not integrated in our lives. They don't know us. And it's in the same way, we don't know who they are. We don't know them. And so there's a book called, and I know I've mentioned this before in previous videos, if you are a follower or subscriber of my YouTube channel, it's called Love Karma by Shar Margolis. And it really speaks about how women especially get bonded to the men that they have sexual relations with, and then they have these crazy expectations of who they are in their lives. And that is the slippery slope of being a woman and getting bonded to a man that you may not even like. And the reason why you might not even like them is because you don't know them. So let's suppose that you decide to have sex with a guy on the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth date, and you really don't know this person. You think you might know them. But again, it's just a glimpse into who they are, because the only real way to know someone is to spend a copious amount of time over a long time. It's like over months and years. That's how you get to know a person. It's not like by having 20,000 conversations, because you're seeing a filter, right? You might get to know them on some level, but it's still a filter. They're filtering out certain aspects of who they are. And that's why I also caution women who meet men online, but they've never met them in person, is because you don't know what that person's like. They can say anything they want on the internet, over text, email, phone call, or even video chat. They can say anything they want. But it's until you're like down and dirty in the daily life of that person and vice versa, you have no idea who that person is. So a woman will sometimes have these high expectations or feel like the guy has high expectations in early dating. And then because she is not mired in her own self-love, self-respect, self-worth, she will sleep with a guy, get bonded to this guy, and then realize a week or two later that she doesn't really like him, but now she's bonded to him. Now she feels all this affection toward him. And it's that craving, right? And now she feels like she's craving him, but she's realizing all these red flags that he's just not an upstanding individual. And so when we realize from the get-go to have not to have low expectations, but to have realistic expectations of what a human being is to you as far as the amount of time that you have known them. And if you've known them less than a month or two, chances are you don't really know them. And so that's the reason to take things slower for your own self-love, self-worth, and self-esteem, and feeling empowered in knowing that when you get to know a dating prospect and not have these extraordinary expectations of they have to pay for everything, they have to woo me, they have to wine me and dine me, and they have to text and call me every day. When you don't have those expectations and you're taking things slow and you're taking things like getting to know a total stranger and really keep reminding yourself that even though you've had the most amazing kiss in your life, you're still getting to know a total stranger, that it's easier to say no to that person. It's easier to tell them, you know what, this isn't working out. You know what, you don't meet my core life values. And so it's easier to say goodbye to this total stranger when they're still a stranger, right? It's when you get entangled and feel too familiar with a total stranger in the early stages of dating that it becomes very messy and codependent and drama-filled, and these unrealistic, explosive expectations of what dating life should be early on, that can all be mitigated by having a lot of self-love and a lot of self-respect and a lot of self-empowerment through realizing this is a step-by-step process. It might take me 6 months to a year to begin to really know this person. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to wait 6 months to a year before being intimate with that person. But what it does mean is that you need to keep reminding yourself, even after having sex, that even though we saw each other naked, like this person is still a stranger and I am still a stranger to this person. And if you can't do that, then you might want to reconsider being intimate, because a lot of times women after intimacy expect the daily phone calls and texts. They expect the weekly dates, or they expect the guy to come over twice a week to their home. So they have all of these expectations that automatically come because they gave a certain part of themselves, a certain amount of themselves. And again, that's where it gets very messy. And that's when you begin to give away your power. In this series and on this channel, I am really helping you to realize how you keep your internal power. And the internal power is, how do you feel self-empowered? And the one way in dating and relationships, early dating, right? We're talking about early dating. The one way in which you can maintain your power is by taking things extremely slowly, knowing that this person is a total stranger. Because the more you tell yourself that, and the more you go against society's values of what early dating life should be, the better off you will be. Because everybody else is experiencing all of these turmoils and drama and emotional highs and lows and fighting and arguing and people telling them they're crazy, people they're dating telling them they're crazy. And it's usually because they're acting crazy, right? Because they're acting very codependent. They're acting like they need this other person, again, who is a stranger. Because again, it's the same thing. Go out on the street and meet someone on the street, or maybe it's somebody you see every day at Starbucks when you're picking up your latte or mocha or frappuccino in the morning, and you see the same person day in and day out, maybe share a few words with that person. But it would be like saying to that person, oh, come and move in with me. Come on, I'll give you the password to my bank account. Come on, park your car in my garage. Come on, just move in with me, because, you know, we see each other every day at Starbucks. And it's like, no, that person's a stranger, and you know that person's a stranger, so there's no way you would do that. But as soon as we get our hormones involved, or, you know, we have these grandiose ideas of what romance and love should be in the beginning, we get overly invested, overly involved, have overly high expectations. And it's not until you fill yourself with self-love that you really realize that those expectations are crazy. They're crazy high. And again, believe me, I have lived many years on this planet, and it took me until a couple of years ago to really fully realize it. And that aha moment of dating a total stranger really came to me more recently when I had a dating experience and I had to keep reminding myself, I really like this person, but this person still is a total stranger. I still don't know a lot about them. Ultimately, I had to make the decision that our connection was good, but it just didn't jive with my entire life structure, my values, my core values. And so I had to cut it short. But because I kept that in my mind this time around, that this person, I still don't know them. We may have talked a lot, we may have spent some time together, but I still don't really know them. And I'm getting to know them still. By keeping that measured vision of how much of a stranger they still are, that's what made it easier to confront them and say, hey, I really don't think we're a match. I know we've had some amazing times together. I know we've had great conversations. You're a wonderful person, and I really do believe that. You're an absolute wonderful person, but I just don't think we quite match up. But if I had fell into the category of having these grandiose expectations of the person, the relationship, the early dating, then that might have been a lot more hard and I might not have done it, right? Because I would have been overly emotionally invested in this person who I barely knew. So I hope this gives you some perspective if you are in the process of an early dating scenario with somebody, or maybe many somebodies, right? Because that's another thing. We get this weird idea that in early dating, first few dates, right? First, I'd say 1 to 6, 1 to 10 perhaps. In these first few dates that we somehow owe our lives to that one person, when in fact we don't owe them anything. They don't owe us anything. It's not our life given over to them. It's not their life given over to us. It's like you can date many people in those first few stages, right? It's like, it shouldn't matter. You don't owe them your life because they've taken you on 4 dates. They don't owe you their life because they've taken you on 4 dates. If you're in that early dating phase with one or a few people, just realize that the more you keep coaching yourself and telling yourself, this person's a stranger, this person's a stranger, I'm getting to know this stranger, but this person nonetheless is still a stranger, it'll be a lot easier to break things off when you see the red flags. Or maybe inversely, you will see a really special relationship unfolding. And after the 6th, 7th, 8th date, you'll say to this person, hey, I really like you. This has been an amazing set of 6, 7, or 8 dates. And let's keep going. Let's get to know each other even more. But you can do it with a clear and level head rather than compromising your values, compromising your self-worth, self-respect because of your expectations. So I want to thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with other women who could use a little bit of self-love, self-empowerment in the dating scenarios. Thanks so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can buy one of my 11 published books. I have some boot camps, meditation courses. The links are all below, and I will see you in the next video.